I'm so scared I'm going to say we record on Wednesday because I've never done a Monday podcast.
I got recognized. I'm making fun of the
In Charlotte?
No.
Oh, I didn't. Someone came up to me and was like, "You're so good at what you do." I was like, "Oh."
Thank you. You're right. What are you talking about?
Exactly. I was like, "How do you know me?"
Where'd you get that at?
Yeah, at the St. Bonaventure game.
Oh, really? Nice.
Some visitor from our church, like on Christmas Eve, I had never seen before, came up and was like, "Oh, you're on the Pinstripe podcast. You go to this church."
I think 4,000 and 5,000 views per show on YouTube now, so it's just really good. Yeah.
Welcome in, Hokies fans, to this edition of the Tech Sideline Podcast. We record on Monday, December 27th, as we get ready for the Hokies' first ever appearance in the Pinstripe Bowl. We'll also look at some of the new coaching and players news, as well as look back at the St. Bonaventure and Duke games for the Hoops team. All of that and much more coming up on episode 217 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. We welcome you in whether you are listening on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, or watching live or archived on the YouTube. We ask you to like, comment, and subscribe if you are on YouTube. And if you're watching live, make sure to drop a comment or question in the chat for Will and Chris, and we'll get to them with Nick at the end of the show. As always, the Tech Sideline Podcast is brought to you by the Regional Training Center. You can help bring Olympic hopeful athletes to Blacksburg in one of the best and fastest growing programs in the country. Go to southeastrtc.com to learn more and donate today. Surely missing the best podcast producer in the land today, Jake Lyman, as he is back home for winter break, but the rest of the crew is the same for a Monday episode. Will Stewart, founder and general manager of Tech Sideline across the way. Chris Coleman, to my right, lead analyst and columnist. Behind the scenes, Malcolm Stewart, the best podcast producer in the land. And in the fourth chair today is Nick Brown. He will have his segment in the middle of the show and get to your YouTube questions at the end. And I am your podcast host for today, Katie Adams. A loaded episode today, that's for sure, but we are coming off of a holiday weekend.
I'm totally sober. I'm not loaded. By the way, you called Jake the...
oh, no. Did I say
I think
that
you called
he was...
him the producer.
Oh, no. Okay. The podcast
right.
host. We miss him, of course.
Oh, and like type this into your script right now. It's actually the Southeast Regional Training Center, not just the Regional Training Center.
All right. We're off to a great start today. Obviously, we have not been in the studio for a while, and that is why I'm not the normal podcast host, but... we are coming off of a holiday weekend and that transitional week between Christmas and New Year, so just wanted to check in with you all and ask how your Christmases were.
Oh, mine was normal. It was good. Didn't go anywhere.
Your parents were here, right? So you didn't have to go all the way to Chatham or whatever?
Nope.
Mine was good. It's pretty awesome having older kids because when they're little, they come running down the stairs and they just tear into everything. But now that they're physically grown up. I won't call them adults yet, but they're physically grown up. We actually like sit around in a circle and do the presents one by one, and It's kind of cool. It's
I
really
slept
nice.
till 10 o'clock on Christmas Day.
We slept pretty late too.
Really?
Like Malcolm, how late did we sleep? 11.
Wow, nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
8 a.m. wake up call in my house, and
Oh.
I'm running down the stairs like a little kid.
No, at one point this weekend, I calculated out of a 33-hour stretch, I had slept 18 of them. It was awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
All right, well, let's get in.
Well, what about yours? How was yours?
It was wonderful. I had a great time with my family here in Blacksburg. Grandparents came up Christmas Day for a nice Christmas lunch. They just left this morning, so it was great. Family time, good gifts, all that good stuff. But let's start with coaching updates. A couple more moving pieces since we last addressed it on the podcast. I want to look at the grand scheme of things, starting with the defensive side of the ball because that side seems to be completed. You got Chris Marv at defensive coordinator, previous linebackers coach at Florida State. Derek Jones looks like he'll be coaching cornerbacks, previous associate head coach, co-defensive coordinator, and secondary coach at Texas Tech. Sean Quinn coaching Sam and nickel linebackers, previous head coach at Savannah State. J.C. Price obviously was going to be retained, still coaching the defensive line. And then finally on December 21st, Pearson Pralou was promoted from director of player development with the defense to safeties coach, fitting for a guy who played a large role in establishing Virginia Tech football to be a powerhouse in the 1990s.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of weird. I have a few more questions about the defensive coaching staff than I do the offensive staff, even though the offensive staff isn't technically complete.
You mean as what people's roles are going to be or what?
No, it's just there seems to be more. Oh, I don't know. I'll put it this way, like. There's no proven coordinator. Like Chris Marv's never been a coordinator before.
Yep, right.
Pearson Pralou's never coached before, right? Sean Quinn was the Savannah State head coach. Now, obviously, Pry's going to spend a lot of time with the defense.
Yeah, and you've got Jones, who's got co-defensive coordinator. Derek Jones,
yeah,
is
he's
co-defensive
fine.
Coordinator.
I'm good with that. I'm good with J.C. Price. And I'm not saying I'm not good with those other guys. I just think it's more question marks on that side of the ball as far as individual roles go. The Sean Quinn role is interesting. You know, he's going to be coaching the Sam linebackers and the nickelbacks. Now, only one of those guys is on the field at a time. You know, this isn't like the old Jim Cavanaugh Whips and Rovers type thing where both guys were on the field.
So if you got
the Sam linebacker comes off the field when a nickelback comes on.
So he's like there's two middle linebackers and the Sam is kind of the outside linebacker.
Yeah, I guess
is the way to describe it. And he comes off and they bring the nickel in on.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. Or maybe they bring the mic off. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It seems to me like there's more question marks on defense, yet at the same time, Brent Pry is going to be over there. Yeah. So I'm not worried about it. So I just questioned a few things, but I'm really not worried about any of them because that's Pry's area of expertise. Right. And I'll trust him there until otherwise. The offensive staff, I think, is really coming together nicely. No complaints there. I just don't know who the wide receivers coach is going to be.
So back to the defensive staff and the hiring of Pearson Pralou. Some fans are asking, why are we hiring a guy who doesn't have any actual college coaching experience. I think, and maybe you remember this better than I do, at one point, Prelo was considered for a position on Justin Fuente's staff. And
But
the word
eventually-
is amongst us locals that at that point in time, with the age of his family at that point in time, he had kids who were in school.
Yes.
Nick, now you went to Radford High School.
Yeah.
PJ,
He is now.
he is now at Tech.
He is a redshirt,
redshirting.
preferred walk-on.
Yes.
Yeah. What other kids do they have in the family? How old are they relative
They've got
to PJ?
2 more sons,
Okay.
Parker and Pace. Parker had a pretty good season. He's short, undersized.
Right.
So I don't think he'll. Yeah, he's very fast, but not
Yeah,
much.
they're all
And then
very
Pace,
fast.
Pace is, I think I want to say 7th grade, but
Okay.
Parker will be a rising senior, starting point guard for the basketball team.
So he still has kids like in middle school and high school, but
Yeah.
not as young as they were as little as 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
As a sidebar, I've always found Pearson Prelo really interesting because I've been in the same room with him. And if you walked up to me, if I didn't know who he was, and you walked up and said, that guy played in the NFL for 12 years, I'd say, you're kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a tremendous athlete, but he is not a guy that you would think that's a professional athlete when you see him. But when he's on the field, he and his kids are all really good athletes. But anyway, he had younger children at the time. And the word is that his wife said, I don't really want you being a full-time coach and traveling around for all the recruiting and stuff like that. And he played 12 years in the NFL. It's not like he needed the
He
money.
doesn't need the money,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, that was just 2 years ago.
Was it?
That was when Virginia Tech hired Ryan Smith,
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay.
So, I don't know what's changed since then. I mean, I know the oldest is out of the house, but
It can 2 years can make a big difference.
it can make a big
Yeah.
difference. And, he has spent time recruiting now, whenever there's coaching changes. And if you need an extra coach because somebody's left, you can name one of your analysts, one of your assistants to a temporary position, and they can actually do recruiting. So he does have recruiting experience now. I'm fine with that. I'm sure he'll do fine. Are we just talking about the defensive staff now, or are we?
Are we ready to transition to the offensive
We can
staff host?
transition into the offense.
Because I'm extremely excited about the offensive staff. I
I see a lot of guys who have either are or have been offensive coordinators ever on the offensive side.
Even if it's just co-coordinators or whatever. But I think the type of hires Brent Pry's made offensively signifies his intent for Virginia Tech to return to power football. If you look at Tyler Bowen and his stints as a play caller in the past, it's been 58% run, 42% pass. Obviously, some of this is dictated by personnel. But if you're going to hire Joe Rudolph away from Wisconsin, which sounds like it's going to happen, it's not official yet, but it sounds like it's going to happen, obviously that expresses your desire to have a strong running game when you hire somebody like that. You hire Stu Holt as your running backs coach. When he was at Appalachian State as their running backs coach, he had 5 1,000-yard rushers in just 4 years. So
I was going to crack a joke all at the same time,
right.
but that's pretty good.
And I was when I was in the gym the other day, the Georgia State bowl game was on, and I was watching their offense, and they were just moving up and down the field. And Brad Glenn will
And
be
Brad Glenn is going to be the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator
has been their offensive coordinator.
and QB coach, and you watched.
And if everybody remembers when Appalachian State beat Michigan way back in the day, in 2007, he was the quarterback's coach at Appalachian State then. So that quarterback for App State, Armani Edwards, yeah, who went to the NFL for a little bit as like a wide receiver, I believe. Anyway, Glenn was his quarterback's coach in college. We don't know who the wide receiver coach is going to be, but overall, I'm very excited about this offensive staff. And, I think Virginia Tech they're going to be a balanced offense, but they're going to lean towards the run. It's going to be a Big Ten style of play, which I think is the best style for Virginia Tech.
So to sum it up, you've got offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Tyler Bowen, who is rumored / reported, but not official. Quarterback passing game coordinator Brad Glenn, who is official. Running back, and I've got ST special teams.
Yep.
Stu Holt. And heavily rumored offensive line running game coordinator Joe Rudolph out of Wisconsin. And then, of course, you just said no wide receiver coach. Another thing I like is looking at all of these guys, and unfortunately, maybe you've got this in your head because I don't have it written down here. But Tyler Bowen, before being he's currently the Jacksonville Jaguars tight end coach, he was the Penn State tight ends coach, offensive recruiting coordinator, and co-offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these guys they have a lot of experience in the areas of recruiting. Some of them are stud recruiters. Some of them are recruiting coordinators. You have that stuff in the top of your head? Because I don't.
No.
Okay. All right. Well,
You printed out all the information for us, and you didn't include it.
yeah, but you remember stuff better than I do, and you write the articles, so I thought you might have it. So a couple of support staff guys. Did you want to talk about those too, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've touched on some of the offensive staff. Nothing from the wide receiver room. Hopefully there's some development to come there. But the most recent hire came yesterday when Mike Villagrana from Marshall was officially announced as the Senior Director of Player Personnel. He spent some time at Penn State and Mississippi State, but this is surely a great hire for recruiting.
Seems that way.
Yeah, he's the most recently been the Marshall GM, and I think it's him I was thinking about. At Mississippi State, he was director of recruiting, and at Penn State, he was a recruiting coordinator. I don't know the difference. It sounds like different job titles for the same thing. Yeah. So that's very cool. And then you've got Dwight Galt IV was announced, about a week ago?
Mm-hmm.
And he comes from Old Dominion Strength and Conditioning and Penn State Strength and Conditioning. So
yeah, Chris, I know you have some thoughts on this one. I was going to say, let it
ride. Before he was at Penn State, he was actually at South Carolina under a strength coach who is now the strength coach for the New York Giants. Before that, with, I believe, the Houston Texans. And obviously he worked under his dad at Penn State for a long, long time. So he's worked under some excellent strength coaches. So on paper, this is a very good hire. I like his dad's tiered approach to strength and conditioning. You've got Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 are your young players, generally, your freshmen, who they just need to add strength. That is their entire focus. It's just getting strong enough to actually be able to play college football. So everybody who redshirts, which almost everyone should clearly do, they're in Tier 1. And quite frankly, I think there are some older players from Tech's program this past year that would have been in Tier 1 their entire careers. And I'm dead serious on that.
Now, Katie, are you familiar with the whole always be redshirting theme of the show?
I know Chris loves it. I don't really know the significance behind it.
It's huge. Everyone should do it. But
it's like a drinking game. When Chris first mentions redshirting, you have to drink, and then
all right, maybe we can do that tally like we talked about the Hunter Couture charge every
ding,
time.
Ding,
every time
ding.
a charge happens, we make a tally. Every time redshirting is mentioned, we make a tally.
So Tier 2 is your normal average college football players. Most guys are in Tier 2. Tier 3 are guys that are elite strength athletes, and they don't necessarily need to add any more strength, but maybe they could use some focus on other areas of their game, like maybe their quickness or their explosiveness or things like that. So Tier 3 would be guys who have a more specialized focus because they're so advanced. So guys like Wyatt Teller, Divine Diablo, those guys would be Tier 3 strength athletes. So I like that type of focus. I assume Galt IV implements a similar type of program.
Yeah. So a couple of things. That reminds me of the old Excalibur level athlete that Mike Gentry used to have. Those were his best guys. Mm-hmm. And I think I read that Penn State currently has 9 guys at that Tier 3 level. And the program goal is to have 20.
But the article I linked was from 2016.
Okay.
So I have no idea. That was early in that tenure, so I don't know how many. But yeah, it takes time. Now the thing about strength and conditioning is it takes time. Like you're not going to roll out there after one off season and start knocking people around.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes several years to build people up in the strength and conditioning program. So it's not going to be an overnight process, although I do think we'll see progress.
All right.
Well, with the transition into the new staff, only 2 guys were retained from Fuente's staff, Price and Prelude. We'll obviously see through the offseason where a lot of the previous Hokies coaches will land at other jobs and other gigs, but there's one name that we know already has a new job, and it's Ryan Smith, who was announced as the cornerbacks coach at Northwestern, which definitely comes as a surprise to many.
I think Ryan Smith held out for too long. I think he had multiple offers he was mulling over and just sat around and thought about it for too long.
Mulled a little bit too long.
Yeah, mulled a little bit too long. I mean, he could have stayed at Virginia Tech, but I think he had a deadline date. At some point, you've got to hire somebody, right? And I'm sure Pry gave him a date, and he just hadn't reached a decision by that date. Although I don't know, you'd have to ask Ryan Smith. But I heard there was definite interest from obviously Virginia Tech, but the SEC as well. So I don't know what happened there. That being said, it's a Big Ten job. He'll make plenty of money.
I'm sure the money's good.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, and Northwestern's facilities are just...
Oh, they have a beachfront resort with lifeguard. Like, literally, it's right on Lake Michigan.
You ever seen their indoor facility that they built like a couple years ago?
I haven't. Now I want to look it up.
It's a building for their entire athletic department. It sits right on... It's like their Merriman Center, except 20 times as big.
It's like a $150 or $200 million building, something crazy.
$250 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
it
goodness.
sits right on Lake Michigan. There's a beach. Like the mock-ups and everything, like there's lifeguard stations out there. Now, granted, it's Chicago. You can only use that beach 2 months out of the year, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You mispronounce weeks.
Right. But yeah, then that's Northwestern. So they got. It's interesting because he's not going to have a specific recruiting territory. Being from Virginia and recruiting in this region his entire career, but he'll be back in this region at some point, probably sooner rather than later.
Right, so he's already a good recruiter, and having that facility and that beach probably is going to help with his recruiting abilities as well.
Yeah, but Northwestern tend to get dinged by the high academic requirements going
Okay.
in.
It's
Yeah.
tough.
Are they a private school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very Big Ten liberal.
Yeah,
arts
they're like the Big Ten version of like Duke or Vanderbilt or Wake Forest, basically.
And they're generally regarded as one of the top journalism schools in the country, right?
Yeah, I believe that's
Yes,
accurate.
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
cousin just graduated from there.
Really?
And Ashton Pollard, now she's working for On3 Sports. Yes. So looking ahead, it's the season finale for Virginia Tech football. They take on Maryland in the Pinstripe Bowl on Wednesday at 2:15. It's their debut in this bowl game, but it's also kind of the debut of a completely new team because this depth chart looks a whole lot different than it did at the beginning of the season. Let's talk about the Virginia Tech offense and this Maryland defense. To start, I'm curious how the Maryland defense is going to break down quarterback film because they don't have a lot of it. Will your guy, Connor Blumrick, set to have his first ever collegiate start after the
flowing
departure of Braxton Burmeister, which came also as a surprise to many?
Well, I'm very excited because I'm pretty sure he still has the awesome hair, but he now has grown the mustache out even further.
He's a regular-looking 22-year-old Aaron Rodgers now. Yep.
So looking forward to that. I wrote in our game preview, which we've already run, so go and check out Tech Sideline for the Pinstripe Bowl game preview. And as always, vote in our poll. We put polls in them where you can pick whether or not you think Tech is going to win or lose, or the opponent's going to win or lose, and by how many points. And I wrote in there that it's so to explain my DNA a little bit. Bowl games used to be an enormous deal. To go to a bowl was a big deal. And my senior year, Virginia Tech went to the Peach Bowl and won it. It was a phenomenal game. It was the first bowl game Tech had actually ever won. And we all went bananas and freaked out. And then Tech didn't go to a bowl again until 1993, and it was the Independence Bowl. And we all piled in our cars and drove how many hours that was down to Shreveport. So it used to be, bowl games used to be this big, huge deal. And from the time, I was a senior when they played in the Peach Bowl. And from that time on, the games always mattered to me. They were always statement games. And of course, I've said this before, back in 1993 when they went to the Independence Bowl, there were only 19 bowl games, so only 38 teams got to go. So it was a big deal. And everybody was 9-2 or 8-3 or better.
At
They
worst, you
were
were
all-
7-4.
They were all
Yeah.
good teams, and occasionally some 7-4 teams would make it. Yeah, if you'd played a tough schedule, and
So there were, in 1993, when Tech made the Independence Bowl, there were only 19 bowls, so only 38 teams made bowls.
yeah.
Over 80 teams make bowls now.
Right.
And now you look
That-
at Rutgers, Province.
Right, exactly. So it's like, imagine the NCAA tournament for basketball is special because only 64, 68 teams make it
Out of 350.
out of 350 or 360, whatever it is. So that's a small percentage.
Yeah.
But and that's what college football used to be. It used to be 120 teams or so, and a third of them made bowl games, or a little less than a third made bowl games. Now over half of them make bowl games, and that just dilutes the whole thing.
Right.
It
So
makes it not special.
So that's all leading up to as I was doing our preview, I was like, I know this sounds blasphemous, but I don't really care if Tech wins or loses. Just from this standpoint, I want to see the players win, and I want them to have a good time. But it's no longer a statement about the program. And to take that one step further, to me, with the advent of all of these conferences with 2 divisions, the goal used to be win enough games and go to a bowl. Well, now it's win enough games to go to your conference championship game and try to win your conference. And because of the playoff coming along, the bowls are just becoming less and less important, and there are so many of them. So all this rambling is that I'm actually going to kind of enjoy watching the game and getting to see different guys do different things, getting to see Blumrick play a whole game. If he lasts that long, we hope he lasts that long, and
he's sure going to be running it a lot.
And J.C. Price has indicated Taj Bullock playing isn't necessarily a guaranteed thing.
I hope not.
Yeah. See. So I'm going to ask you why you say that, but I think I already know. I think you're worried that if they play Bullock, and it goes poorly, that it will impact his confidence.
No, I'd like to win the football game.
Really?
Yeah. Well, do you think I want to lose it? You got 2 options, winning or losing. I'd prefer to win it.
So I'll put it this way. If they lose, I won't think it's a big deal.
I know what you meant.
I think it's cool.
What you meant to say earlier was, it doesn't matter whether Tech wins or loses. It's not that you don't care.
It's not a statement about the program.
Right. Okay.
We have a fresh start anyway.
I'll go ahead and read my entire quote from Mike Nizielek's article that I'd printed out. I was going to use this for when I make my preview, but this is talking about the entire passing game, but Bullock is mentioned. Virginia Tech's offense wasn't very efficient throwing the ball in 7-on-7 drills on Sunday, with expected starter Connor Blumrick and backup Taj Bullock rotating series. The whistle was blown 3 times between the 2 of them for holding on to the ball too long. Bullock, a true freshman out of St. Peter's Prep, didn't have a completion of more than 5 yards during the session. He was playing against the second-team secondary with mostly walk-ons at wide receiver. Okay, so, we have walk-ons in the 2-deep at wide receiver. And what do we actually expect if you put Taj Bullock into this football game? Do you expect any
that
kind
he'll
of
run the football a lot?
Let me explain.
Quincy Patterson style?
I want to explain to everybody where Taj Bullock is coming from here. All right, he's a guy whose first 2 years of high school, he was behind a quarterback who signed with Navy. He was behind another an FBS quarterback in high school. So he didn't start till his junior year. His junior year, he had a great year. But then he got no development time going into his senior year because COVID hit and everything got shut down. Then they finally played in New Jersey an abbreviated season this past spring with hardly any preseason, and they only played 6 games. So this is a guy who started 16 or 17 games, 18 maybe, in high school. And one of his critical development off seasons was wrecked because of COVID. This guy is way behind, most true freshmen because of that. He is not ready. And, I don't know why people expect him to be. Michael Vick had to redshirt. Michael Vick wanted to switch to quarterback, switch to wide receiver when he was redshirting because he couldn't pick up the offense. And that was a Ricky Bustle offense, which wasn't exactly a complicated offense. So, look, the light comes on.
Button hooks and down and outs and bombs.
Right. So, the light comes on in different times for different people. And I think Taj Bullock has the ability, but it was tough for him over the last year to develop because he didn't have a chance to develop. Somebody was saying on the boards the other day, well, they should still be able to design a good offense around him because I watched in a bowl game the other night, another true freshman came in and had a great game. And so I looked this other true freshman up, and he was a true freshman last year in 2020.
So one of the COVID true freshmen,
right?
Which means
Right, but basically a redshirt freshman at this point, and had a full senior season, and his development wasn't impacted by COVID very much. So Bullock it's just not putting a true freshman out there who only started 18 high school games and missed an entire year of development with a bunch of walk-on receivers. What do you really expect to happen? With a coaching staff that is getting fired because they couldn't coach the actual experienced players.
Yikes.
Sorry if I killed your enthusiasm for the game.
This is
I know this is coming out strange, but this is all in defense of Bullock,
right?
Because I don't want people to have any expectations for him if he goes into this football game.
But last fall, we had a really cool picture of him that we tweeted out from fall camp, so he's got to be a good quarterback because he took a really cool picture.
So did Quincy Patterson. He took a lot of really cool pictures.
Well, I was going to ask about you all's opinions on the Taj Bullock situation and if he gets into this game, so I think we answered that pretty well.
Covered it.
Yes, check. But to analyze the quarterback situation a little more, I want to circle back to the departure of Braxton Burmeister. What was your initial thoughts when you saw that he was entering the transfer portal?
Not surprised. I think he knows at Virginia Tech, whether he was coming back or not, was going to go out and try to get someone to start in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And but even with that, like, even if they didn't do that, like, who in the world is he going to throw the ball to next year? Like,
There's a lot of unknowns on that offense.
There's a lot of unknowns.
Coaching staff, wide receivers, offensive linemen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know that, like, Braxton has, like, really enjoyed his time here from certain perspectives. And this is probably subconscious and for some of these guys hitting the portal, but think about the last 2 years if you're a Virginia Tech football player. And half of this is true for all football players, but only half of it. So all of last year, you spend the entire season and off season, getting something shoved up your nose 3 times a week. That's not any fun. And then you finally clear that, and you spend this entire season hearing that your coach is going to get fired. And then he finally does get fired. And so, like, it hasn't been fun to be a Virginia Tech football player for the last 2 years.
And then your top 2 wide receivers, Trey Turner's out, Tavion Robinson's already transferred.
Right, and I think that's just subconscious for some of these guys. It's like they have not enjoyed their Virginia Tech experience the last 2 years as far as being football players go. So they just want to leave.
I'm over here laughing, covering the team I haven't enjoyed the last 2 years either. It's been pretty difficult. Yeah. And all I do is cover them.
Right.
There was a quote on Twitter that came from Braxton Burmeister, and this is not specifically. This is just from what I remember seeing. He said his reason for entering the transfer portal was something like, I saw a lot of other quarterbacks entering the portal, and I started to feel the pressure. Do you think that was kind of a segue to not say, oh, they were going to replace me?
I don't know. I do think, Braxton is a pretty deep thinking dude. That's what I took away from when I sat down and talked to him for probably 45 minutes or an hour at the ACC media event last summer. So I do think it's legit. You see everybody else in the portal. If you wait until January to enter, then that game of musical chairs is going to stop, and you're not going to have a seat.
No.
So I don't really blame him from that standpoint. I wish Tech would just let him play in this bowl.
I
like
wonder,
Emory Jones.
Right. Oh, if it's true that he actually asked to play, oh my God, a football player actually asking to play in a meaningless bowl game,
Right.
That seems a surprise. I would have let him play.
So, by the way, let's take a quick trip down a side path and give some props to the guys who are opting out from the standpoint that they're going to leave early and go pro, but who are still playing.
Correct.
Brock Hoffman, Raheem Blackshear, Tenuta. Burmeister, it's rumored that he wanted to.
Yeah.
So those are guys that are still playing, even though they're not going to be here next year, and that's very cool. All the other guys get a lot of attention, and I was busy with some stuff and wasn't really paying attention, and I was grouping the NFL entries and the transfer portal guys and the opt-outs as all not being available. So when I finally turned my attention to everything, I was like, oh, Blackshear's still going to be there. Oh, Tenuta's still going to be there. Hoffman's still going to be there.
What a great opportunity for those guys, actually, especially Blackshear, because, we just spent a while talking about Tech's quarterback situation and their wide receiver situation. We can get into the wide receiver situation a little bit
I got
later.
a question on that.
Blackshear knows he's going to get the ball a lot in this game, or at least he should. So he's got one more opportunity.
He should have gotten it in the Miami game.
Should have gotten in the Miami
Yes.
game too. But at any rate, he should have a lot of carries in this game because Virginia Tech is hardly going to throw the ball at all.
Yeah.
Well, like you mentioned, Virginia Tech is hardly going to throw the ball at all. I wanted to harp on that wide receiver situation. Looking at the receivers, with the absence of Trey Turner and Tavion Robinson, it looked like Caleb Smith was going to play an integral role in this game.
Yes, he was.
And now we hear reports that he's in a boot, and we hear reports that Dwayne Lofton did not practice. So how much does this concern you, and where does your confidence lie in guys like Jalen Jones and Shanka Hodge?
I think the world of Jalen Jones is a prospect.
Yeah.
But as a true freshman, if those other two guys you just mentioned don't play, then Jalen Jones is going to be the number one receiver in this game. He has one career catch.
And it was a hell of a catch.
It was a hell of a catch. It was a hell of a throw, everything. But I think he's a very good prospect, but a true freshman with one career catch and a quarterback who completes 43% of his passes, I think it's safe to say Virginia Tech is going to be running the football a lot in this game. And I don't
one-dimensional.
Yeah, and Isaac reported that Blackshear's actually been practicing some in the slot.
Which, yeah.
Is he practicing punt return too?
Yeah, he's on. There's 3 guys on the punt return depth chart. It's all listed or. So it could
Blackshear, Malachi Thomas, and
I forget
somebody else I can't think of right now.
Changa Hodge.
See, doesn't this sound like fun? I'm telling you, this is going to be kind of fun.
Changa Hodge, I mean, the guy came back in the middle of the season from a torn ACL. He tore that ACL in like March or April. Yeah. So I appreciate his dedication and his willingness to come back in the middle of the season because he didn't have to. I mean, or you could argue that he shouldn't have from a health standpoint. But do I have confidence that he's going to go out there and be productive without, when he didn't have an off season, he just jumped into it in the middle of the season and he's got a backup quarterback thrown to him? No, I don't have confidence that any of them are going to be productive. If any of them does have a productive day, I'll be very happy about it. But let's put the shoe on the other foot. If Virginia Tech was facing an offense where there was only one receiver on the team that had ever caught a pass, and we were facing the backup quarterback who completes 43% of passes, I would feel like we were going to shut them out. That's exactly what I would expect of Virginia Tech's defense to do.
I'm sitting here while you're talking, and I'm scanning the roster card for wide receivers, and I'm not finding them. And at this point, it's just throwing names out.
Tink Boyd's in the 2 deep on the official depth chart at slot.
Yep.
He's a walk-on. He's
Tink's been with the team a long time. So
he is a senior.
Yeah.
Academically.
So that's why he's in front of guys like Dallin Wright and Kelly Lawson.
Dallin Wright's an outside receiver.
Okay.
Yeah, Dallin Wright's an outside receiver. Guess we should have printed off the depth chart. But Tink Boyd was listed number 2 at slot behind Dwayne Lofton. So there's not. If Lofton can't play, does that mean Tink Lloyd's going to be playing?
Your guy Tink Boyd.
I mean, nobody listening to this podcast has ever heard of him. He's a walk-on receiver. I mean, that's what
I've heard of him primarily because I see him all over Instagram.
Do you really?
Yep.
And TikTok.
For what it's worth.
He's got a big TikTok presence.
Does he really?
Yeah.
He does.
What does he do over TikTok? Does he dance?
I think so.
Everybody
all the wide
dances on it.
receivers have a big TikTok presence. I don't know. You'll have to check it out. But
I would like them to have a big weight room presence. That's what I would like to see.
Dwight Galt the Fourth, if you're listening, Chris Coleman is ready for you.
That's right.
I was going to mention how we talked about it a little bit already, how this is really good news for Raheem Blackshear that Brock Hoffman and Luke Tenuta are playing. He has the ability to really put an exclamation point on his collegiate career before taking his talents to the NFL. So excited for that. But moving on to analyzing the Maryland defense, they really had their work cut out for them this season with a lot of the offenses that they faced in conference play. Gave up 66 to Ohio State and 59 to Michigan. Even with a lot of new pieces in the rotation for the Virginia Tech offense, this seems to be a defense that the Hokies may be able to exploit in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a horrible defense, to be perfectly honest.
It is horrible, this defense.
It is horrible, this defense.
And Virginia Tech's got, we forgot to explicitly mention, they've got almost their entire offensive line intact.
Yeah.
Lasita Smith, partly due to injury, has opted out, and they're going to slide somebody Janzi, I think, down to guard, right?
Left guard. He's been playing there because Lasita Smith has been hurt the last few weeks anyway.
Okay, right.
Lasita Smith only played like 7 snaps against UVA.
So that's one thing the offense has going for them is that the offensive line is there.
They've got their offensive line, they got their tight ends, they got their running backs, they got a running quarterback.
All right.
So Maryland is not good against the run. They're not good against the pass. Now you worry that they're just going to put everybody in the box.
Yeah.
Because they're just not going to feel a threat from the Tech receivers at all, and that's certainly what I would do if I were them. But I do think Virginia Tech, they're going to run the ball. I mean, Tech even ran. Think about it. Think about like back to the BC game. Like Tech successfully ran the ball against Boston College despite not having a quarterback in the game that was a passing threat at all. And they're still able to average 4.5, 5 yards per carry against a Boston College team that knew where they were going to run it the whole game.
Yeah.
So I expect Tech to have success running against Maryland. The key is, you have to stay in the game early. Tech can't get down by double digits and put themselves in a position where they have to throw a lot. Mm-hmm. They can't play from behind. It has to be a one-score game, or Tech needs to be winning. the entire way through.
And
so
the
start
other
is important.
the other thing that's difficult when you can't pass is if you make a mistake, if you drop a snap, if you false start, if you hold,
Fumble.
you're toast on that drive. You know, if you spend time doing anything other than moving forward, at least in small increments, you're in big trouble.
And you're right. And Tech is going to try to shorten the game and there's going to be fewer plays in the game because all Tech's going to do is run it. And when there are fewer plays in a game, that compounds your mistakes. Like one turnover is like 2 turnovers in a regular game because you're probably going to have 2 fewer possessions, 2 or 3 fewer possessions because just the shortness of the game and everything like that. So it's very, very important to play a clean game from that standpoint.
Chris, you mentioned in the preview that if there's one bright spot to a struggling Maryland offense, it's players like Jordan Mosley and Sam. I'm not going to say his last name because I don't know how to say it.
I can't either. Can't help you there.
Let me look it up here.
Sam O.
Sam Okoye-Nonu.
Yep, that's it.
Sure.
He's
Number
had
97 defensive end.
Yeah.
He's
Talk
had,
about the impact that they have on this game.
He's probably been their only defensive lineman who's been, I would classify as above average this year. He's a good, solid player. Mosley's been awesome at safety.
Let's go back to Okoye-Nonu. You don't see this very often. Defensive end, 6'2", 280. I type a lot of roster cards, and I don't type that kind of thing very often, even in 3-4.
It's kind of a strange. You know, they've got a position called a jack where the guy is 6'4", 270. Yeah, I mean, they're very big up front. They're probably not a very quick defense all in all. They've got 2 linebackers who, if you look at their PFF grades, are 1 or 2 of the bottom 10 linebackers in the country in grades out of all Power 5 schools. I mean, just absolutely horrid.
We've typed that about an opponent earlier this year. Do you remember who it was that had really bad linebackers?
I can't. Georgia Tech, probably. They're pretty horrible at everything.
Right.
Probably Georgia Tech. But at any rate, Mosley is awesome. He's going to be one of the best safeties, maybe the best safety Tech has played all year, except maybe the Notre Dame guy. I forget his name. Was really good. But
Kyle Hamilton?
Yeah. Mosley is dominant against the run and the pass. Just a very, very consistent player. So I would look for Tech to avoid him as much as possible. And the thing is, most of the Maryland defense, though, is just bad. And if Virginia Tech had all their horses, I would expect to win this game by a couple touchdowns. Yeah. But I'm just afraid they might be too limited from a personnel standpoint.
Yep.
All right, well, that covers one side of the ball. We're going to take a break, but first let's send it over to Nick in the 4th chair. What do you have for us today?
I just got a few things. Scott Glessner, of course, is loading it down. He said in the 1968 Liberty Bowl, I'm assuming, that we're not going to throw the ball quite a bit. You all touched on that a lot. But Virginia Tech's fewest passing yards in a bowl game was in that 1968 Liberty Bowl game versus Ole Miss.
Really, I would have guessed the Gator Bowl against Carolina.
Well,
when we had a safety starting at quarterback.
There was only 2 yards passed in that 68 Liberty Bowl.
Wow,
so,
that's yeah.
Takes
gain. I would guess that would be the record.
But Virginia Tech had their most rushing yards in a bowl game. That game, 330. They lost 34-17 after jumping out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter.
So you said that was against Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, the Rebels.
Probably Archie Manning.
I was going to say Archie Manning was quarterback in Ole Miss.
Virginia Tech is 5-9 in bowl games. This is all, of course, all Scott Glessner right here. When Virginia Tech has a 100-yard rusher, which is very strange.
5-9 when they have a 100-yard rusher. Okay.
And they're 2-7 when allowing a 100-yard rusher. So that one's like whatever.
Good news is Maryland probably won't have a 100-yard rusher.
Yeah, their leading rusher, what's his first name? Tayon Fleet Davis.
Yep.
He started the season with a 100-yard game against West Virginia. He ended the season with a 100-yard game against Rutgers.
And in between didn't do a whole lot.
He's very, very capable back. He catches a lot of passes too. But the thing is, in Big Ten play, they were down by so many points that they weren't running it very, very much.
They played
now that if they try to come out and be balanced against Virginia Tech, he's capable of rushing for 100 yards. But we'll see if they
he only had 120 carries on the year. I was looking at his total yards of 664, which isn't a lot.
5.5 yards.
But he averaged 5.5 a carry and had 9 touchdowns.
And when you're getting smoked and you're down by 50 against Ohio State, you're not going to run the ball.
Yeah, he played Ohio State. Iowa's defense just loaded this season also, and Michigan, Penn State. Michigan State, yeah, you're not going to do much here. But this is a big one right here. Virginia Tech has allowed over 400 yards in 6 of the last 7 bowl games.
6 of the last 7.
Yeah.
Well, generally speaking, you do face better. In theory, you should face a good opponent in a bowl game.
I think
Right.
Lynn Bowen had 400 yards himself against Kentucky, right?
That sounds about
PTSD.
right. No,
That one sticks in my
And 3
craw.
punches
Yeah.
thrown.
Did you say 6 of the last 7 bowl games?
Yeah.
Which bowl game did they not allow?
Rutgers. Was it Rutgers?
Well, that wasn't
That
within
was
7 years.
2012. Yeah.
Wow.
Or not 2012.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's 2012.
But yes, Rutgers.
Feels like it was just a few years ago.
I don't know which bowl game that would be off the top of my head.
Speaking of that Rutgers game, in 2012, Virginia Tech played Michigan to start the season in that bowl, or not the season, end of the season bowl game, but that was still in 2012.
Right.
It's only 2 overtime bowl games Virginia Tech has been in. Same calendar year.
Ha. How about that?
I actually watched. I was flipping through the channels, and they had the. It's called the 2012 Sugar Bowl, but it was the one at the end of the 2011 season that Tech lost to Michigan, and it was on the Big Ten Network, and they did it where they removed all the crap from in between the plays, so the broadcast only took an hour, but it was every play of the bowl game. And I discovered I had buried quite a few unpleasant memories about that bowl game. It was just as painful to watch.
People remember the Danny Cole play, but there were so many plays in that game worse than that.
Yeah,
Like I remember when Virginia Tech, didn't we block a field goal at one point and it bounced and like an offensive lineman caught it and ran for a first down?
I believe the exact
And
play
then they
was,
scored a touchdown.
They lined up for a field goal, and they either faked it or the snap was bad.
Okay.
And when they threw it, it got batted up in the air, and they caught it
A lineman
for a
caught
first
it.
down.
Right.
A lineman, yeah.
And then they scored a touchdown.
Yeah. And so Virginia Tech's very first possession, they drive down inside the 5-yard line. They got first and goal at the 2, and that's when David Wilson pulled off the –
Ran halfway to his own end zone.
he ran for a 22-yard loss. Yeah.
David Wilson was not a very good red zone running back.
Right. That's true.
1,700 yards that year, but only scored like 9 or 10 touchdowns. I mean, he did not have good vision or anything like that. He was just a guy who was a freak in the open field. No, the problem is there is no open field when you get down to the 2-yard red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell me if you remember this play. Tech got down there close, kicked a couple of field goals. Tech was dominating the game, and then Michigan comes out, and they throw a deep ball down the sideline. And you remember Eddie Whitley had a beat on it.
Mm-hmm.
It came running over from his safety position, went up, collided with a Virginia Tech cornerback, and the Michigan player catches the ball and runs it in for a touchdown,
it
like a
was nuts.
70-yard touchdown.
And Tech had gone for it on 4th down previously because they were already up 6-0. They
the
went
fake
for a
punt?
quarterback sneak with Logan Thomas. And instead of sneaking it up the middle, he tried to run around the left end. And
They were
got
inside the
stopped.
10-yard line and got stopped on.
Remember Virginia Tech was down to their 3rd-string kicker in that game?
Yeah. And he
Because
kicked his,
Cody Janelle was either suspended or kicked off the team. And then the backup kicker rolls down there and gets in trouble on Bourbon Street and gets the old bus ride back to Blacksburg. So and that was actually two bowl games in a row. The previous year at the Orange Bowl, he got sent back to Blacksburg from Miami because he spent so much time at Dennis Rodman's New Year's party
same kicker?
in Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, same kicker. I don't even know if he ever actually kicked in a game. He had an opportunity in the Sugar Bowl, but, so I've plenty of Tech players, not plenty, but Tech players in the past have gotten sent home from bowl games. Everybody knows the Keith Short story. I remind them of that when I see him at the gym a lot. But
Keith got sent home on the bus from the 95 Sugar Bowl.
95 Sugar Bowl, yeah. I don't think anybody's ever been sent home twice from bowl games, though, except for that kicker whose name I don't remember.
And the
impressive feat.
The kicker that filled in made his first 4 field goals.
Yeah, and he missed one in overtime.
And then he missed one in overtime. And
yeah. Why are we talking about this game?
because I watched it.
Is now a highly successful realtor in the New River Valley.
Who is?
Cody
Cody?
Janelle.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He sure is.
He's got all the radio ads on. I was very curious to see what the record was after the basketball team beat Maryland and when football played in the same year. And there was only 4 years that football and basketball played in the same calendar year, and basketball won. 2008, 2005, football won both of those games. And then the other 2 times were 1949, 1929, and football lost both of those games to Maryland. So kind of skewed a little bit there, but
Right.
I guess it was a little more recent.
Maybe we can beat them by like 70, and then they'll fire Mike Loxley, and then we get both their
3 for
coaches
3.
fired in the same year.
And then I thought the biggest news coming out of the Commonwealth a couple days ago was big red zone target for UVA. Bobby Haskins is transferring to USC.
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 Like Southern Cal.
Yes,
Cal.
Southern
Yeah.
Cal with Lincoln Riley.
Perhaps they can better use his receiving skills.
And I'm still trying to get over one of their Noah Taylor's a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Noah
Just
Taylor.
committed to UNC today.
Yeah.
Staying in the
Transferring to
coastal.
UNC.
I don't think players these days grasp that there are rivalries, unless you're like at Ohio State and Michigan or something. I watched that game or part of it over the weekend, and you had players out there ripping each other's helmets off. They hated each other.
Yeah.
And then at halftime,
This
they're
is
flicking
one of the
each other off.
oldest rivalries in college football. UNC and
The oldest. I
the oldest
think.
in the South.
Yes,
South
yeah.
Florida's rivalry.
UNC and UVA, and you have a UVA player going to UNC. Not only that, but his teammates all on social media wishing him luck.
Good luck,
All right,
man.
if I was a Virginia Tech football player and one of my teammates transferred to UVA, I would take his stuff out of his locker, sling it out on Beamer Way, and tell him to, good luck. Well, not good luck, but just get out of
riddance.
here. Good riddance. We don't want you.
And so Taylor's announcement that he was transferring to UNC, it was the weirdest. He's sitting there in UNC gear and he's holding a Jordan shoe and looking at it lovingly, and that's just bizarre.
Yeah.
Whatever works, I guess.
By the way, now we're talking about a human being who will play football for both UVA and UNC. Does he have one more year at the end so he can just go to West Virginia and complete the trifecta?
Well, I remember when Bryce Watts transferred to UNC, Trey Turner immediately got on Twitter and posted a video of him in practice toasting Bryce Watts down the sideline.
That's what I'm talking about.
With
Love
no
that.
context, just posted that video, and I remember that got a big
So
uproar.
yeah. So to put that into context, Bryce Watts started at cornerback for Virginia Tech in 2018, then went to UNC, couldn't get on the field for a bad UNC defense, which
Right.
lets you know the lack of talent that Virginia Tech put on the field defensively in 2018.
Oh, and then he went to UMass,
Oh, did he end up?
and he
Really?
got benched at UMass.
Oh,
Yikes.
One of the worst 3 teams in the country
Right.
this season. Yeah, he was
Good.
benched at UMass.
So you're talking about this year.
and he started
Wow.
at corner for Tech all of 2018.
Yep. Yeah.
It's amazing we actually made a
I
ball.
remember seeing a Bryce Watts, air quotes, highlight where he got blocked by, I don't remember who it was against, but he got blocked off the field of play and then completely off of my television screen.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, remember that?
Good times.
UVA fans have to be so bitter right now. First, Virginia Tech takes 2 of their football commitments, and then UNC takes Noah Taylor.
Well, if you remember last year, or a couple years ago, their starting long snapper, UVA's starting long snapper, transferred to Tech. But
Enzo Anthony.
the real kicker here, he's a direct descendant of Thomas Jefferson.
Really?
Yes, he's as UVA as it gets. Really.
He's from Florida, though.
But direct descendant of
Interesting.
Thomas Jefferson who went to UVA, transferred to Virginia Tech. You can't make that up.
That's a good story.
Is that all from you, Nick?
Who are the other 2 Big Ten teams besides Michigan that Virginia Tech has played in a bowl game?
Well,
Rutgers.
Indiana.
Rutgers, yeah.
And Rutgers, besides Rutgers.
Indiana.
I mentioned those 2. Yeah.
It was Indiana in that 93 Independence Bowl, and I
And then
think
who's the other one?
Oh, how many?
Is there
God.
So
2
there's
more?
4. We already mentioned Rutgers and Michigan. So you got Indiana. They weren't in the Big Ten at the time.
Oh, well,
You'll
Nebraska.
yeah, one of
Wow.
the forgettable games.
Actually, that was a really entertaining game.
First
the,
half.
the Tech-Nebraska game.
yeah, it was.
It was the 2 best strength and conditioning programs in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a close game. It was 24-21 going into the fourth quarter, and then Nebraska ran away with it. But I'll always remember that game for Tech dropping like 10 passes. And it could easily been a
Yeah, Druckenmiller
different game.
played really well.
Yeah, he
but,
played great.
Yeah.
And that's considered one of the greatest teams of all time. Well, the next year.
The Nebraska program.
yeah.
The
Their
program right
95
there.
team was,
year
in my
before,
opinion,
yeah.
the best
Great.
team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where they beat Florida 62-24 in the national title game.
So it's them, the Miami team, and then I guess people consider that LSU team one of the greatest too now.
And the last decade worth of Alabama teams. Yikes.
They are inevitable. But that's all I've got.
All right.
All
I
right,
had
we're gonna,
basketball stuff, but we'll get more into that.
all right, we're going to take a break here on episode 217 of the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Southeast Regional Training Center, Got it that time. And when we come back, we're going to get into the opposite side of the ball in this bowl preview, and then we'll talk some Hokies hoops. Stay with us here on episode 217 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back into episode 217 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. It's great to have you with us. On set today, we have Will Stewart, Chris Coleman, Nick Brown in the fourth chair, Malcolm Stewart behind the scenes, and I'm your host for today, Katie Adams. As we preview Virginia Tech's bowl game, we've already talked about the Virginia Tech offense against the Terps defense, but want to get into the opposite side of the ball for both teams. The Maryland offense is led by Talia Tagovailoa, who is completing 70% of his passes, which presents a big challenge for this Hokie secondary.
Yeah, 11 interceptions. You'd like to see a few less interceptions, of course, but overall, very, very efficient passer when you're completing 68%, 3,600 yards basically. Now, at the same time, when you find yourself behind by a large amount of points, as they did in most of their games this year, that'll pad your passing stats to a certain extent. But on the whole, he is an explosive passer. The biggest guy in the world. I think only about 5'11", 200 pounds.
He's listed at 5'11", 200.
Got a lot of good receivers, or quality of depth at receiver. I forget exactly what I put in my preview, but I think it was something like 8 guys have 18 or more catches this year. Must be nice to have that.
8 guys have 18 or more.
Yeah,
man, that's a lot.
Jarrett's their leading receiver. Raheem Jarrett, number 5. With 56 catches. They have a tight end who's caught 49 passes, Okonkwo, who I think is a solid player. I just wanted to say Okonkwo.
Say his first name for me, though.
No.
Chigoziem.
They actually have a lot of players on this roster. Remember the old ESPN commercial where they're doing the NFL draft and they're coming up with all these funny names?
Oh, that's a Key and Peele skit.
Wasn't ESPN. Okay, but it was cartoon plurals from Virginia Tech, and the names they just came up with were outrageous. Well, there's a lot of names on this Maryland roster that fit really well into that skit.
So I learned today, even though it's spelled Tagovailoa, it's pronounced Tagovailoa. I looked it up in Wikipedia. That's how I know.
So their passing game concerns me. No Jermaine Waller, though to be fair, Jermaine Waller hasn't really been the same since he got hurt against Pitt. Mike Nizialek also reported that Breon Murray's status for this game is unknown at this point. Now, all these guys with the status of unknown, they could be hurt, or it could be that they've said, I'm not playing and I'm leaving, and the coaches are just protecting them. You don't know at this point. You have to ask the question at this point, considering the amount of attrition that's already happened.
Yeah, so
it's important that the Texas secondary hold up against those receivers.
So Tagovailoa is we didn't go into his stats in detail. You mentioned him, but he's 308 of 450, which is 68.4%. That's a lot of attempts in a year. 3,595 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. So yes, he is used to throwing the football quite a bit, and I don't really have anything to add other than that. Just wanted to get the stats in there. So back to you.
Right. Even with the heavy pass game from Maryland, they may open up their playbook a little more, especially with the departures of Amari Barno and Jordan Williams from this team, giving one of the vets on this Maryland team, running back Tayon Fleet-Davis, who we mentioned earlier, a good opportunity to have a day.
Yeah, he's a good back, I think. 5.5 yards per carry, only 664 yards, but I think if he had played for a team where so many of their games hadn't been so lopsided, he would have had more carries. Sort of like Stephen Peoples for Virginia Tech in 2018. I thought he could have rushed for 900, maybe 1,000 yards if Virginia Tech hadn't fallen behind in so many games. He's also caught 32 passes on the season, so he's a dangerous player on the ground and through the air. I would expect Maryland, considering the personnel losses on the defensive line for Tech and the fact that there's just no way Tech can run away with this game because they don't have the explosive firepower on offense. I would expect Maryland to run the ball more in this game and try to be balanced.
Yeah,
I certainly would if I were them.
And along those lines, one of my concerns is, Virginia Tech wearing down at the end of the game. Jordan Williams has opted out. Mario Kendricks is already injured.
Banged up.
He's not going to play in this game. Yeah.
Right. So they're starting Josh Fuga and Narelle Pollard, which is great. I'm fine with that. But they're backing him up with Wilfred Panay and Nigel Simmons.
Nigel Simmons will walk on undersized defensive tackle.
Yeah, yes. Simmons is listed at 6'2", 260, I think. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And he's listed behind a guy who's 6'0", 280. So if jumping ahead a little bit, if you look at the way I picked it some crazy score like Maryland 38, Tech 14 or 16 or something like that. And I didn't explain that is Tech keeping it close but then wearing down on defense later on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Griffin also not playing, is that correct?
Yeah, his arm was in a sling.
Yeah, that's right.
He hurt his shoulder against UVA.
Yeah.
So that knocks down. Gosh, I think Matthias Carroll's in the 2 deep now.
He is.
What about Cole Nelson? Is he?
Yeah, Cole Nelson should get a lot of reps, and I love Cole Nelson. I love his
Right.
future. I think he can be a great player for Tech.
Right, so you got Tywan Garbett listed at defensive end, backed up by Carroll, and at the other defensive end, you got Eli Adams, 5'11", 235, backed up by Cole Nelson or even C.J. McCray. So
Right.
Who I've read that he is in danger of losing his red shirt if he plays this game, though.
Oh.
So
you
I
would
don't
have to
think
look
he's
up
going
that.
Then you don't play him.
Yeah.
Throw in a walk-on. Doesn't matter. Put a linebacker or defensive end if you have to for a game. Don't blow that guy's red shirt for a meaningless game.
Yep, add 1 to the red shirt tally.
Yep.
Ding.
Want to circle back around to Rakeem Jarrett's presence. I kind of remember this guy from signing day. I guess it was last year or 2 years ago. I want to say he was committed to maybe LSU and then flipped to Maryland in December.
It might have been,
There was some big team like that. But
it was probably Alabama because Loxley was the Maryland head coach was Alabama's offensive coordinator.
Right.
And then went to Maryland. Right. So,
okay. Well, no, Nick is typing away.
And
So
this
I'm
was
looking up.
Yes.
yeah, he was a top 75 recruit from
wow,
DC.
okay. Yep, out of DC.
So that was a big stay-at-home get for Maryland.
Yeah, and interested to see how Chapman and Strong step up against a player like that, definitely.
It was LSU. He was.
It was
you're
LSU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice, Katie.
Well, nice.
So one thing we haven't talked about is that Maryland has about 2 or 3 guys in the transfer portal, but they've had no opt-outs.
Yes, I was
Yeah,
going to
they
mention
haven't
that.
lost anybody relevant at all.
Well, to close us out, I want to ask what are the keys to Virginia Tech in this game and allowing J.C. Price to finish with an above 500 record?
2-1 record.
Yeah.
Oh, obviously, you have to run it
Run.
early, often, and
I think they should run.
yeah,
And when they're done running,
run some more.
run some more.
Yeah, and you have to avoid like a critical mistake because a turnover in this game, because there's going to be fewer possessions, it's going to be tougher to come back from. Obviously, the defense has to hold up in this game early because if like Maryland scores like on their first 2 drives, you're like, oh man, how are we going to keep up with that?
Right.
So you just got to play. I won't say a perfect game because there's no such thing as a perfect game. You have to play a clean game. You can't go out there and make critical errors.
It's funny you mentioned that Nebraska bowl game earlier, and there was that same feeling of different reasons, but there was that same feeling of don't make a mistake. And you said it was 24-21, Nebraska going into the fourth quarter. And I think it was in the fourth quarter where Druckenmiller
Oh yeah,
pitched behind a running back.
I remember they recovered a fumble for a touchdown.
Yeah, and it was over after that,
yeah.
you know. And you kind of get the same feeling like you got to hang with them. We just went over the issues with the defensive line and how they might wear down.
It's like you're walking the tightrope, and you have to stay balanced.
Yeah.
You know, because it's going to be a disaster if you teeter off course, and that's it's kind of how this game makes me feel. Like I think Virginia Tech can win it. In fact, I picked Tech to win it when I wrote my preview on Sunday, and then I read that Dwayne
Nizielek
Lofton
stuff,
probably wasn't going to play, and even more guys than I thought were out. And now I'm just like, I don't really see the path to victory because I mean, unless it's the 2003 Miami game, at some point you're going to have to complete a pass to win, right? I mean, you can't sit there and finish the game 3 of 9 passing for 27 yards or something like that and expect to win the football game. You've got to do something.
Right. So let me look up. I'm pulling up our preview because I want to get these numbers exactly right.
I got him.
You've got what?
The preview pulled up. Remember you told him
preview.
to.
Oh, okay. Well,
Preview poll.
yeah. So I was actually going to talk about the numbers of seniors and things like that. So let me do that, and then we'll go over the poll. So come on, scroll. All right. So Maryland, and this is going off their official depth chart. They start 10 seniors / graduate students, and they have a total of 15 listed in their depth chart. Most positions at the depth chart go 2 deep. Some of them go 3 deep. So 10 starters and 15 total in the depth chart. Virginia Tech lists 0 starting seniors and graduate students. We swap in Tay Daly. They list Keontae Jenkins.
There's no way Jenkins can be considered
Right.
a starter over Tate.
So we swap in Tay Daly, so that gives them one senior in the starting lineup. And let's see. And Tech has just 4 in their total depth chart.
Well, now to be fair,
And then some of them redshirt juniors, which are like seniors.
well, no, it's more like some teams are listing that extra year. So like
year.
Virginia Tech, like Raheem Blackshear's in his 5th year of college. So is Brock
And Tywan
Hoffman.
Garbutt's
So
in
is
his-
Silas
yeah.
Jancy. All of that. Tech is still listing him as redshirt juniors because last year didn't count. Other teams aren't doing that. Like Tech's basketball team isn't doing that. They're still listing Hunter Couture as a junior instead of a sophomore.
And I
things like
will
that.
say this, in making up the roster card in Maryland, in their roster, their online roster, they didn't say eligibility class. They actually said academic class on their roster. So maybe that's and Notre Dame tends to do that. They list the academic level instead of, I think, the football level.
They list both on their actual roster page.
So you're right. It does muddy the water a little bit, and maybe I'm making it sound worse than it really is.
But generally speaking, though, when I look at the Tech defensive end depth chart and I see 3 true freshmen out of 5 players, and I look at the depth chart and I see freshmen at wide receivers, and now we don't even know if some of those freshmen are going to play. And your backup quarterback is a true freshman, and yes, Maryland has the experience advantage.
So based on what we just said, is that the difference in this game? Maryland's starting a lot of vets and seniors, guys who none of them have opted out, largely due to the fact that none of them have ever played in a bowl game. The last time Maryland played in a bowl game was 2016, so they're probably excited to go, even if it is the Pinstripe Bowl, but it's a bunch of vets playing against a bunch of rookies or inexperienced guys on Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and Tech doesn't have a real natural quarterback in this game. They might have to play some walk-ons, maybe it seems like, at wide receiver. But, the main reason is if Virginia Tech had Braxton Burmeister, Amari Barno, Trey Turner, Tavion Robinson, Jordan Williams, Jermaine Waller, I would pick Tech to win by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it would be – I think it would be a good game for a while, but I think Tech would clearly show their superiority by the end of it, in my opinion.
And Tech is badly compromised at 3 position groups: quarterback, wide receiver, and defensive line.
You can generally cover up one spot maybe, but like all 3, that's tough to ask.
All right, well, we're going to transition into hoops and take it from the gridiron to the heart.
So first of all, let's ask, how are the fans voting in the preview, Nick, as far as what they think is going to happen? How many votes?
There are 571 votes as of about 20 minutes ago. And Virginia Tech winning by 1 to 10 points is got 227. Maryland wins by 11 plus, has 186.
Wow.
So I think
so.
That's
So a lot of people are picking Tech close, but a lot of people are also
picking Tech to get blown out.
Get blown out. So
all right.
Fascinating.
All right,
Thank
now
you.
we'll transition
Sorry
to
to
hoops.
interrupt.
No worries. Virginia Tech took on St. Bonaventure in the Hall of Fame shootout down in Charlotte, North Carolina. This game was really fun to watch from start to finish. Virginia Tech never trailed and was really able to play a complete game. Hunter Couture and Storm Murphy both with season highs in points.
Yeah, that was an awesome game to watch.
I listened to that on the radio.
Did you really?
I was traveling.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But it sounded awesome.
Started off 13-0, and I'm not saying I expected Virginia Tech to come out and stomp everybody by 40 points this year, but that was how I envisioned Virginia Tech playing basketball this year. Ball movement was excellent. Cutting was excellent. Honestly, Tech played excellent basketball for about 60% of the Duke game. And I would say that the St. Bonaventure game and that first 60% of the Duke game was the type of team I expected.
At the moment,
Tech
it was 42-34.
Yes.
Tech beating Duke.
Yeah, exactly.
From the very beginning of the Bonaventure
and like
game
the
up
last
to
5 minutes of the Maryland game too. Honestly,
Yeah.
It's all how I envisioned Tech playing basketball this year. Hasn't been there, unfortunately, for some of their games, but certainly it was a very entertaining game to watch. Now that being said, Tech hit St. Bonaventure in the mouth, and St. Bonaventure just stood there. And
They were awful.
They were horrible. They just laid down and took it too, man. They were
did.
not. Yeah, they did not put up a fight at all.
They're a better basketball team than that.
Yeah, they won the A-10 last year.
And they were picked to win it this year.
Right.
Yeah. But if you remember, the big concern going into that game was Storm cannot bring the ball up court against even like token full court one-on-one pressure. And St. Bonaventure didn't really try that. That's not who they are. And I think you saw Tech get up, get into the offense, get in rhythm, boom, 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 and St. Bonaventure just kind of laid down. Not that it wasn't cool. It was very cool to see Tech finally get some confidence and play well, and I think that carried over into the Duke.
It was good to see it happen in Charlotte, too, because there were a lot of Tech fans there. You were there, Katie.
Me and Nick were both there.
Yeah, that's right. What was it like being there? A lot of Tech fans, I assume?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of "Let's Go Hokies" chants. We had former players dancing in the crowd.
Saw that. It was the Dorenzo Hudson and Paul Debnam.
And Paul Debnam. Yep.
He went a dance off with some St. Bonaventure fan.
So Virginia Tech beat St. Bonaventure in everything.
Everything, dancing in the stands. Did Justin Mutz start a "Let's Go Hokies" chant?
Yes,
he did. I was sitting really close to the floor, and then I moved. Apparently, it happened when I moved, so I never heard it. But Nick, you probably did.
It was late in the game. I think Jalen Haynes just got a layup or something. He's at the free throw line, and he started it then. But it was was a pretty good time.
Yeah, so the game was fun. Can't say the same about their fans. Me and Nick had a pretty bitter experience with some of the St. Bonaventure fans. So.
Those rough St. Bonaventure fans. You've always heard horror stories about them.
What's that all about? The WVU of the A10, I guess.
I got a lot of kind gestures thrown at me and my friends.
Teaching you how to count to 1.
Yeah.
In some cases 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got plenty of 2s.
Well, this game wasn't only complimentary of the offense, but also the Virginia Tech defense. St. Bonaventure was 18 of 53 from the floor and 6 of 23 from beyond the arc. How much of this was St. Bonaventure just shooting really bad, and how much of it was Virginia Tech playing really great defense?
I think Tech really threw them off their rhythm. I do think St. Bonaventure let Tech get to them, and they took some bad shots. I don't think they stayed mentally tough into the game to try to get deeper in the shot clock and find better shots. But at the same time, you have to give Virginia Tech a lot of credit because Virginia Tech came out really for the first time this year and against a good opponent and played well from the start of the game. Like Virginia Tech, they didn't play well at the start of the game against Memphis. They didn't play well against Dayton. They didn't play well against Xavier.
Yep.
They didn't play well
Not well
at
against
all
Maryland,
against Wake Forest. Yeah, or against Maryland. So Virginia Tech and the announcers during the game actually on ESPN, they talked about St. Bonaventure was notorious for slow starts this year. So I guess something had to give.
Right.
Tech hasn't been good starting games, and I guess St. Bonaventure hasn't either. And in this case, it was St. Bonaventure that gave in a big way.
It's really remarkable, and maybe you guys watch a lot of different sports. I tend to watch football and basketball. How much confidence enters into it in basketball? When you miss a couple of shots and that basket starts getting smaller and smaller, or you make a couple and you feel like you can just throw it in from anywhere, what's analogous to that in another sport? Like
soccer, scoring goals.
Or when a baseball player goes into a slump.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Like when you're hot in baseball, they say it could feel like you're hitting against a basketball. Like they're throwing basketballs. Or they say they're throwing grapefruits over the plate. Yeah. But like if you're in a slump, it's like they're throwing golf balls at you.
I just feel like I've seen that more in Tech basketball this year, where they don't get off to a good start, and then like that Wake Forest game, everybody talks about Memphis and Xavier and all that. I thought the Wake Forest game was the worst example of that, where it was just bad from the get-go. And St. Bonaventure was the opposite. It was great from the get-go, and people want to bottle that and make it happen every single game, but that's just not the way it works. And then they came out against Duke, and like you said, the entire first half and the first few minutes of the second. Of
course, I missed half the first half because they were busy. You can switch it over the ESPN app and everything like that if you want.
Well, I've got ESPN News, so I can just.
So I don't have ESPN News.
Yeah.
But it's annoying to like you sit down, you make your dinner, you turn on the game. It's 9:00 and you expect it to be on, and no, it's Arizona and somebody
there's
else.
6
And
minutes
I'm like,
left
I
to
literally
go.
just sat down here, and now I have to get up and switch everything. Blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah, it was a great game though. Arizona, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, after an impressive win against St. Bonaventure, I think we all hoped that Virginia Tech would carry that same confidence into Durham when they took on Duke, and they did for the first half, but Paolo Banchero had an incredible second half and really put this game out of reach for Virginia Tech.
Oh man, yeah. Tech did a great job of it.
They really had him frustrated. in the
Yeah,
first half.
it's going to be tough for a guy like Keve Aluma to be asked to do so much offensively and defend a guy like that. A guy who's going to be a lottery pick.
And
top two
Aluma,
pick. Yeah,
Aluma
probably the
was
number 2.
great in the first half.
Oh yeah, I thought he was
offensively.
much more assertive offensively in this game. I think the last couple of games he's been improved a lot, and teams are not double teaming him. So he's doing what he needs to do now against those teams. He's totally dominating them, and I think that helps open things up for everybody else.
And Justin Mutz said after the game words to the effect of, yeah, we lost, but the way we played in the first, 24 to 26 minutes, he's like, that's us. That's how we can play.
Yeah, that's how they can play. Let's hope we get to see them play again at some point soon.
Nick, you had something?
Tech kind of jumped out to a slow start. Also, they fell 13-4, and
Yeah.
Wendell Moore just couldn't miss. And then
Oh, that's
Mike
right,
Young,
yeah.
Mike Young did not call a timeout and
Just let them play
battled
through.
back.
Yeah.
And
You don't
tied
have
at
to do that with a
13-13.
veteran team, in my opinion. Just
So
let
I
them play
thought
through
that
it.
was probably the best recovery this season after starting out slow.
Yeah.
Like David Cunningham said in his post-game article, it was kind of like a light bulb went off for Duke in the second half. Over a 5-minute span, the Blue Devils went on a 13-0 run. Meanwhile, Virginia Tech missed 7 straight shots, including 5 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
That
That'll
run
do
was also
That'll do it.
29-7 run. If you added all
29-7.
Yeah, so
a
it
couple
turned
of
to,
mini runs.
they were leading 42-34, and then they were down 47-42 and just
Yeah.
traded baskets for a little bit, and then another run got put on them, and that was that.
I think Duke is hands down the best team in the ACC this year is what it seems like.
Yeah, it's not close.
Yeah. Well, to look at the positives, it's kind of all about when you get hot. We saw Hunter Couture and Storm Murphy get hot in that St. Bonaventure game. And for this one, it really was Keve Aluma and Justin Mutz who kind of put on a show for those NBA scouts, which I'm sure they're hopeful to reach there at some point. But also, Naheem Aline, I want to talk about him for a second. He's now struggled in 3 straight games with finding a bucket. Should he be getting less playing time? What does that situation kind of look like?
Do you have his stats?
Nick does.
Yeah.
He's a whopping 13 of his last 53, 4 of his last 24 field goals, 2 of his last 15, 3.7 points per game in the last 3 games.
He's always been streaky to a certain extent. I mean, and it wouldn't be so frustrating if you didn't know he was capable of going off. Would he have 25 or 30 in the NCAA tournament last
30,
year against Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, he dominated that game. I mean, he's capable of going off at any point. So you worry like, okay, yeah, you could bench him and put somebody else in, but what if that was that one game where he was going to go off and you miss it? I mean, Maddox has played solid for Tech. I don't think he's as far along within the offense. You could go smaller and give Padula more minutes. Padula is Tech's most creative player as far as passing, dribbling, driving, all of that. Plus, he can shoot. I would be more inclined to go smaller, which I admit is not ideal against everybody Tech's faces. But I would be more inclined to give him playing time if I was going to make a decision. But you also think, Aline, he's been a good player for Tech in the past. He had plenty of good games for Tech last year. He's going to snap out of it at some point. Right? But at the same time, I don't like to say this, but you remember like when Robert Brown started his career really, really well for Virginia Tech when he was a freshman? I believe it was in
that.
Seth Greenberg's last year, and Brown looked like he was going to be a good player. And even in his sophomore year, he got off to a hot start when Tech started 7-0 or whatever. And he went off on like Oklahoma State when they were ranked in the top 10 and Tech beat them. And then he just stopped making shots. And then he never started making them again.
Until he transferred.
Until he transferred to like UAB or something like that. You know. So and I don't want to say that Aline's reminded me of that. But the slump he's in kind of reminds me of when Robert Brown got mired in that slump and just could never manage to shoot his way out of it.
I'm drawing a blank. Who's the now NBA player that missed 25 shots in a row when he played?
Dorian Finney-Smith.
Dorian Finney-Smith, man. Naheem has not reached that level.
No. Yeah, you're right. He missed 25 straight shots, and he was a 5-star recruit.
So still some concerns with this basketball program, and now you obviously throw COVID into it. I had a whole slate of questions we were going to get into a UNC preview, but as of a few hours ago, that game for Wednesday night at 7 p.m. has officially been postponed due to COVID protocols within the Virginia Tech program, which is extremely unfortunate. It was going to be a full day of sports for Tech fans on Wednesday with the bowl game and that UNC game to follow.
Yeah, and I'm probably in the minority here, but I think that UNC game was winnable. They have not been playing great defense this year, and I think Tech could have – I'm not saying they would have won the game, but I think they had an opportunity to win.
Well, the way they
game.
played at Duke would have given them confidence going into that.
Sure. And I not saying I would have picked Tech to win, but I think they would have had an opportunity to win. Now, the concern here is I think – I don't know whether it's contact tracing or guys testing positive or whatever. There's a concern here that it's possible that the Pitt game might get canceled too if enough guys aren't out of – protocols or whatever by Saturday, then you could have 2 games in a row getting canceled, in which case you basically go 2 weeks without playing a basketball
And then you
game.
get out of your rhythm, which you saw happen last year.
Last year, like when Tech went out of it for like 2 weeks, and then they come back at home and get smoked by Georgia Tech. Like they hung in there, it was like a tie game at halftime, and then they're just out of gas for the second half.
Yeah.
And then you saw it in the NCAA tournament too. Like they paused right before the ACC tournament, and Tech played really well against UNC for the first half, ran out of gas in the second half, and then lost in the NCAA tournament. So you saw both times when they got shut down due to COVID, they didn't play as well when they came back. So now you worry 2 winnable games in a row get canceled, and then you come back from that, and after you've stopped playing for 2 weeks in a row, if you go out and play somebody who has been playing, you're probably going to lose that first game back, just from a pure
and
rhythm standpoint.
So what Chris means by 2 winnable games in a row is he felt good about UNC, and Pitt is really bad.
Pitt's really bad. Saturday would have been a definite win.
Yeah.
As definite as it gets as far as ACC games go.
Yeah. Now, it hasn't been officially called off yet.
But it could be.
Yeah.
We don't know what day Tech went into protocols. I mean, if we did, then you could do the math and maybe figure it out.
Yeah.
But if it just happened yesterday,
It's not
then-
looking good.
You need 7 scholarship players, and it doesn't matter who it is. You got to play if you have 7. So
Okay.
if you get 7, you play.
Them's the rules.
Yep, them's the rules.
And the ACC just changed their rules about if you have to call the game off due to COVID. It was going to be a forfeit, and I guess UNC would have won the game, but they just changed it, I want to
Yeah,
say.
so they
I think you're
switched
right. I think they're
weeks ago.
making every effort they can to reschedule it.
they're not going to reschedule any of them, in my opinion.
You know, you're
But they didn't reschedule any of them last year. How can you fit it in? You're already playing 2 games.
the only
a
way
week.
you can reschedule them is if some other game gets canceled and you can fit it
Yeah.
in.
Sure.
So
Right. So I'm not expecting any reschedules. I just think it's going to be an odd schedule, and the NCAA tournament committee is going to have to do what they did last year and try to pick a field of 68 teams based on some teams playing this many games and some teams playing that many games, and
Man.
it's going to be a mess again.
Well, that wraps up our hoops discussion. We hope to see Virginia Tech basketball play as soon as possible.
And I would say I feel bad for any fans. Like let's say you're coming to that game on Saturday. You've got your hotel room booked in Blacksburg. You're coming in from Richmond or Nova or something like that. You don't know if the game's going to get played or not.
That's
Right.
right.
You might not know until after you leave.
Yeah.
It sucks for fans.
Same thing with these bowl games. I know a lot of Boston College fans, UVA fans, Miami fans traveled and bought tickets. And
Probably not so many Boston College.
or UVA. I don't know if they
Yeah.
want to see their team anymore, or even all of it is a complete mess. As we transition into game picks, it looks like you two are going the same route with picking Maryland in this one, given the circumstances of the Virginia Tech offense. Will and Chris both picked Maryland. David has Virginia Tech in a close one in this one, so we'll see
It's our chance
who
to catch
pulls
up to
it
David.
out. Right. I was looking at it. I think
Or he's going to completely end up blowing us out if Tech wins.
I want to say, Chris, you've picked 4 wrong in a row. And
Sure, I have. Yeah, that bodes well.
We were talking about it on the message boards this morning. Collectively, as a staff, Tech has played 10 Power 5 games, and the 3 of us are 3-7 in picking those games. We picked, I think, Syracuse. No, we were wrong about UNC. We all picked UNC
you
to
all
win.
picked UNC.
See, I'm mad because I keep changing my mind for these games,
I know.
and then my original opinion turns out to
So
be
Virginia
right.
Tech is going to win this weekend
Yeah,
because you originally picked them, but now
There
you
you
went
go.
with Maryland.
Yeah, or like I almost changed my pick to Tech for the UNC game, right? And I did pick Tech against Notre Dame, but then I almost went back and changed it, but I didn't. Yeah, it's
That gut feeling is
Yeah,
proving to be
I know.
right. So Will has Maryland 38-16. Chris has Maryland 31-17. David's got Virginia Tech 30-27, and then, like Nick said earlier, most of the fans are saying that the Hokies win it between 1 and 10 points.
And then the other half picks a blowout loss.
Yeah.
so nobody knows what's going to happen. Should be entertaining.
How does David think Virginia Tech's going to score 30 points?
I have no
I
idea.
wish he was here. He'd come on and say.
He's in New York.
Well, before we close, we'll get into some of the YouTube questions. Nick, anything good in the chat today?
One real, I guess, question that you all haven't answered. It's a pretty good one. I'm always interested in the Nike and the deals that go on with
That's
this
his
stuff.
specialty.
So with it expiring, Nike deal, do you think Virginia Tech leans to Under Armour, Adidas? I particularly really like Adidas. Or they stick with Nike and Whip Babcock tries to make a
Better
hopefully
deal
a
this time.
half of good, like a little bit better deal.
So to fill in the history there, go to Google and type in Virginia Tech's Nike deal, and the Tech Sideline article should come up first, or you can just add Tech Sideline. Virginia Tech's Nike deal, Tech Sideline. And I studied this stuff about 5 years ago, and among the Power 5 schools that I could find publicly available data, Virginia Tech had the 5th worst contract in terms of monetary value and equipment value.
Who's below us, Rutgers?
I don't remember who was below Tech, but they were all renewing soon. And I actually started the research again recently, and there's no question in my mind that Virginia Tech is the worst deal now in Power 5 and has, once those other 4 schools got new deals. In terms of what's going to happen, I have no idea. It's not a thing that people are talking about. You're right. It has to get announced. It expires, I think, in June of 2022.
Yeah, I got the four
So-
worst after that.
So right at the end of this year.
So who were the 4 worst?
And they all expired at the latest 2018. So you had
Yeah.
Oklahoma State right behind us, Iowa, Rutgers, and then Iowa State was last.
Iowa?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
sure.
that Iowa renewed
Pure
2018. Iowa
That's
State
what that's
renewed
gotta be.
2018.
Yeah. So, back when Buzz Williams coached Tech, I was like, there's nowhere they're going away from Nike.
Yeah.
But I don't know now.
He switched to Adidas and loves it. Texas A&M. the
Yeah,
Adidas
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That was part of the deal. Texas A&M's an Adidas school, right?
Well, he also started doing interviews with local media once he went to Texas A&M. So he looks like Buzz and talks like Buzz, but
Until he's
maybe he's
goes
Buzz's
somewhere
evil
else.
twin.
Yeah.
He's not winning as many basketball games yet as he won here at Tech either. So I have no information on that. I'm actually gonna study and do the spreadsheet again and kind of refresh that article. But yeah, that should be coming up in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, it can't possibly be any worse than the
No.
last deal.
My
No.
favorite
That's
part of this
that's a
article
positive way to look at it.
is Georgia Tech was ahead of Virginia Tech by $25,000 annual value with Russell Athletic.
Russell Athletic, that's right.
25,000.
Yep.
And the other thing that was popular in contracts back then was the head coach getting a lot of the money.
I remember,
actual
yeah.
cash.
I remember that was part of Beamer's contract. Like part of his salary was directly from Nike.
Yeah, and the probably the most egregious deal, and I'm sorry I don't remember the exact numbers, was Under Armour. When Steve Spurrier was coaching at South Carolina, Under Armour signed what looked like a fat deal with South Carolina, but a lot of the money was going to Steve Spurrier. And then Spurrier retired, and the contract ran another 2 or 3 years with payments going to him. I'm pretty sure that's the article I read.
I remember looking up salaries of ACC basketball coaches one time, and I remember being pretty shocked when I saw Roy Williams' listed salaries was not very high.
Not
But
very high.
then I thought about it, and I'm like, I bet Nike's giving that dude a bunch of money.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something to look for, I think, in the next 6 months or so. And hopefully the news will be good.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Under Armour, at the time I did that article 5 years ago,
Yeah.
I think it was Adidas had signed this ridiculous contract with UCLA where they were
It
paying
was Under
them-
Armour. Under Armour.
Under Armour signed a contract with UCLA where they were paying them $17 million a year. Is that what
18 mil.
That's insane.
But I think that was topped when Oregon renewed its deal with Nike.
And since then, Under Armour's fallen on hard times, and they're actually backing out of a lot of those contracts.
Well,
so
and then Jordan jumped on UCLA immediately after they were dropped. And that Under Armour deal was supposed to last till 2032.
Wow.
yep.
And
Yeah.
Jumpman.
So there's I don't have a feel for the market right now.
Nick, anything else from the chat?
Not much. Clark Rulin says that they won't switch away from Nike, and I trust that source.
Clark is the man.
I trust that source. Another one was, would you trust moving Storm Murphy to shooting guard? You kind of touched on it. And then bumping up Sean to point guard.
It would be more like, to me, the bigger question is who would defend which position on the defensive end? Who would defend the two guard? Who's always going to be the biggest guard generally? That the two guard can be anywhere from 6'2" to 6'6" or 6'7", depending on who you're playing.
Yeah.
So it's more conducive to do that against a smaller team than it is a bigger team, theoretically.
And there just aren't that many small teams out there.
Nope.
By the way, I do want to point out Storm Murphy's been hot in the last 4 games.
Yep.
55% shooting.
Yep.
10 points per game.
Yep. He probably took too much flack earlier in the year. Like the offense itself wasn't playing well. That was collectively everybody's fault.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what's coming up on Tech Sideline for the
I
rest
have
of the
no
week?
idea, Katie. I haven't had a chance to think about it.
I'm glad we didn't put any work into that UNC game yet.
Oh
Ooh,
God,
yeah.
I know.
Hopefully a wide receiver coach may be announced.
I'm hoping. I would actually like Rudolph to get announced as
Yes,
offensive
that
lineman
as well.
because I've already written the column.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
my
got, he's got
God.
stuff good to go.
God, I was
So maybe
expecting
that
it-
is coming up
I
on
was
Tech
expecting
Sideline.
it to
We
get
don't know.
announced last week, so I actually wrote 2 columns in one day last week. I wrote a column about Rudolph, and it's called "Brent Price Signals His Intent" because he signaled his intent in terms of what style of offensive football he wants to play. And then later in the day, I wrote an article about a column about the strength and conditioning hire and what it meant. So I wrote 2 columns in one day, got to post one of them,
Yeah.
and then the other one's just still sitting there waiting to be run. I really hope I didn't waste my time.
I know. So a couple things. First of all, I was emailed a poem in case Virginia Tech hires Rudolph. Of course, it's the whole Rudolph the
Post
Red-Nosed
Christmas now.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I wanted to ask you when we were talking about coaching staffs, when do you see, like, there's going to be the announcement of the entire staff, what everybody's going to be coaching. I don't know if that will include salaries at that point in time. When do you see that news being finalized?
Generally, the salaries in the past are, leaked to like Bitter or Nizielek or somebody
Teal.
like that, or Teal, and they just report them on Twitter and then write an article about them.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's ever been an article on Hokie Sports saying here's how much our coaches make.
Never.
Right.
So I'm really talking about an official release that says what their
everybody's
job
going to be
titles
coaching. I would guess as soon as the last staff member gets hired, or
which could be
the wide
Tyler
receivers.
Bowen.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's that weird contract rule in the NFL, right, where he can't accept a new job until
Correct.
the NFL
You
season
technically
is over.
can't interview,
Even though
right.
Urban Meyer was fired, I thought there would
something
would happen there,
right.
but I guess
but
not.
but he wasn't fired. Bowen himself was not fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sign your contract with the school.
Or the
with the team.
organization.
Or the organization. Excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, I wish. It's unfortunate that like he didn't get fired too,
I know.
because he could be
That would
here
be nice.
already. But
That sounds like an odd thing to say.
it is sounds like
I know
an odd
what you
thing to
mean.
say. But,
Dang, he didn't get fired.
So the last regular season game is January 9th?
Yes.
It's like,
Stupid
gosh.
17 game schedule.
I know.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
that's like 2 weeks from now. Oof.
All right, well, that is going to do it on episode 217 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We dove into some of the recent coaching and player updates, previewed the Pinstripe Bowl between Virginia Tech and Virginia coming up on Wednesday at 2:15. Also touched on some of the recent basketball games. Want to thank everybody on set today. Will Stewart, founder and general manager of TechSideline.com. You can find him at Will Stewart TSL on Twitter. Chris Coleman, lead analyst and columnist for Tech Sideline. You can find him at Chris Coleman TSL on Twitter. Nick Brown in the 4 chair today. He is at Nick Brown 33 on Twitter. As always, Malcolm Stewart doing a great job behind the scenes. I'm Katie Adams signing off on episode 217 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Enjoy the game, Hokies fans. We'll see you next week.